So Arsenio Hall reference, I'm driving in from Cleveland this morning, and I'm listening to, hey, Granny Lucas, that went way over your head, didn't it?
Totally.
Didn't it? Yeah, that was, see, that one.
I know who Arsenio Hall is, but I don't know the Cleveland reference.
Yeah, okay. So that's how he used to start his show. He used to act like he would drive to L.A. from Cleveland every morning. So I'm driving in from Cleveland.
It's a funny bit, yeah.
Yeah, hilarious.
It was funny 30 years ago, yeah, for sure.
Or 40.
Yeah,
Anyway, so I'm driving in, I'm listening to Grandy, and we had all texted about this last night as well. So Grandy, in fact, why don't you just lay out, you thought that I was doing yesterday on the show what my mom does for a living, which is stressing about crap that doesn't need stress. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess. I don't think this Aiyuk situation is that big of a deal. I don't think we're anywhere near this being a situation where locker room is fractured and people are upset at Debo. If he misses regular season games, yeah. But so many people in that locker room, all the key guys have been through what Aiyuk is going through right now. I think they understand that it's just a business and he's trying to get his money as much as he possibly can.
So I would agree with everything that you're saying because you're looking at it from two angles, and I want to give you a third angle. This is what I would say, Dibs. The angle that he's kind of talking about is, A, can the 49ers handle this? Of course.
Yeah.
B, can the locker room handle this? Yes, of course. C, here's your third angle. Can Brandon handle this? And that's where I'm concerned. And I can't even maybe give you a great answer as to why I feel this way. I don't trust Brandon Aiyuk to handle this.
To handle it, yeah.
I don't trust him to handle this. I didn't feel this way with Bosa or Debo or Kittle or any of the previous situations. Maybe because, the Debo one, which is the easiest comp because there was official trade request. It is the same position. It's the same kind of market value, all of that stuff. It was happening when there was not a game for 6 months. There's a game in a month and a half.
Right.
There's a game in a month and a half. And I don't think Brandon is in a good headspace. I don't like the decisions he's been making, which makes me think I might not like the decisions he's about to make next.
It depends on what those decisions are and depends on what the offer is and how this all falls down. But the more we get closer to report date, which is now 5 days away, it feels like there's no chance that he reports next Tuesday when the vets come in and next Wednesday when they're on the field, and you and I will be out there Wednesday or Thursday. We're still trying to figure that out. But I won't imagine that we'll see number 11 out there running around next week when we go down to camp.
I would not think so either.
No.
But I'm not worried about camp next week.
No.
And I'm not worried about camp the week after that. I start to get bothered with week 3, I would say. But let's go even further. And Grandy just mentioned it. What if he starts to miss regular season games? I think a lot of our logic brains go, well, he won't do that because that's a bad move. But I'd argue he's made a bunch of bad moves already. So I don't trust that he won't make more.
But that's $800,000 is what, and the team, as we learned yesterday, has the right to fine him for missed preseason games as well.
Correct.
$800,000.
$800,000 a week.
Right. For a guy who's making his first big contract, if he plays on the 5th-year option, $14 million and change, and he's making $800,000, that's not nothing when you're a guy who's you've made 12 so far, but now you're getting that big step up. You're making $800,000 a game, so it makes sense that you wouldn't want to miss those checks.
I mean, you and I were talking about this 20 minutes ago and sort of came to a conclusion that this might, and we'll tell you about it here in a sec. I want to play something from David Lombardi here in just a moment about what we were just talking about, which is the money and the fines. But I could see this actually being, and Grandy, to your point, I think maybe the 49ers want it to go this way. I think maybe they want to play this year without Brandon having signed an extension. My worry is I don't know if he will. I don't know if he'll show up before week 9, and nobody wants that. And yes, I think the 49ers would still win more games than they would lose. But nobody wants that. Everybody wants this to feel good and have happy players. But there is a hell of an argument to be made while you're doing this. Do you sign Brandon long-term? Do you cut Debo? You got to figure out what you're going to pay Brock. Well, I have an idea. How about if we get another year of information before we do any of it?
Right. And
how about that?
How about that? Especially when you talk about teams that are going to pay wide receivers more than $20 million a year, and then you got a quarterback who's going to make 50 or more, depending on how that contract lands. And so you start running out of money pretty fast. And you got Ricky Pearsall, who you drafted, and you got Jacob Cowing, who you drafted. So you think about other people who those guys are not Debo and Brandon, but they're here. And maybe you coach them up in a year, and like you said, you get a year of information, and then you wake up in January or February and you win the whole thing, or you don't, and then you've got a decision to make.
Good morning, everybody. 888-957-9570 is the number. It's Willard and Dibs on our jacked up week here. 95.7 The Game. Dibs, you brought up a very interesting other NFL team as a comp for maybe how the 49ers are doing their business. Hold that for a sec. But first, with regard to the money, the fines, the way that this is being played potentially by the Niners and Aiyuk. David Lombardi joined us yesterday here on 95.7 The Game. The Athletic covers the 49ers. Here's what he said with regard to that.
They can waive the fines. We haven't heard from the 49ers whether or not that they would plan to do so with the Brandon Aiyuk. But $40,000 per day is the number for missed days of training camp. And then if this extended into the regular season, you basically start forfeiting game checks. And he's set to make $14.1 million on the current deal right now. So you're paid by week in the NFL. You divide the $14.1 million by 17 games. That's $829,000 per game. Woo. A team also, according to the CBA, reserves the right to fine a player that up to that amount for a missed preseason game. So, I mean, if the 49ers really start playing hardball, they could theoretically begin fining Brandon Aiyuk up to $829,000 within the next month here if he's still not around for the preseason. I'm not saying it's going to get to that. I'm just saying that's when we talk about teams having leverage in these situations, that adds to the leverage that teams have.
I still think that the betting favorite is that everybody figures this out within the next 3.5 weeks. I still think that's the betting favorite. I also think this, and I've sort of openly fantasized about this with you in the past. I sort of wish, I get why, but I wish we didn't know what people made. I wish SpotTrack.com, sorry for the people who work there, I wish it didn't exist. I wish it was like every other industry in America. I don't know what you make, for God's sakes, Dibs. Nope. I have no idea.
We talk for 20 hours a week. I don't know what you make.
Yeah. Anyway.
I mean.
Yeah. No. None of us do.
I endorse because I do it here live on the air.
And I know what you make for that. Yeah. Because we all make the same thing whenever we endorse something. So, but I have no idea. I got no idea what anybody makes here. And so that's the norm in terms of how we go about jobs in America. Unless you ask, you know what I mean? If it's your husband, if it's your wife, if it's your family member, hey, what are they paying you? What's the conversation? But I don't know what any of my friends make.
Well, it depends on what they do because, teachers, for example,
they're on a scale.
They're on a scale and it's public.
Except for that scale is also movable based on, do they have their masters? Do they
but you can Google a teacher and find out what they make. Sure. So there are some jobs like my old buddy Matt was the BART lawyer. And so his salary was public. And so people would, try to weaponize against him what he made.
Did you Google it?
Well, I knew because he told me. But you can Google it and you can find out.
If anybody's out there Googling teachers' salaries, you're probably a bad person. I'm just guessing. Right. I'm what are you doing? Why would you do that?
You're trying to grind to your teacher. Well, you make more than me. You need to do more than I do. You need to teach my kid better.
Here's all you need to know about Googling teachers' salaries. They're too low. Onward.
Thank you.
Next part of the conversation.
But there are salaries that are public, and so I don't share that fantasy that you have about these not being public because it becomes a big part of the story.
No, exactly.
A big part of the plot.
I know why they do it. Yes, this is entertainment, and this is a big part of what we talk about. And, this exec, you signed this, and they write the thing with the Giants and Hard Knocks and Saquon Barkley. It's fascinating. So, yes, I get why you do it. But here's what I'll say. If those things weren't public, I think Brandon might be signed by now. I really do. Because what happens is he gets offered probably what he thought a year ago was a great number. It might have even been what he thought at the end of this year was a great number. He admitted on the Ryan Clark podcast, there were days where I was like, better get my suit ready, about to go do a press conference. We're going to sign this thing. So they were close. And then other people's money started showing up on the internet. And Brandon and his agent went, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we should ask for more. And the Niners said no. And Brandon might, in that situation, have thought, well, okay, then I'll go ahead and sign what originally I thought was a really good number. Ooh, but then the public is going to see it. And it's going to look like I'm $2 million worse than Jalen Waddle. And I'm not $2 million worse than Jalen Waddle. Well, okay, fine, I'm mad. And I'm holding out. And I'd like a trade. None of this happens if we don't know the numbers.
Yeah.
I think.
Unfortunately, we're not at Disneyland, and this is not Fantasyland, and we're dealing with reality. And the reality is the numbers are out there, and he knows the numbers, and he didn't have to change his ask. And you mentioned Devontae Smith, who signed for Philly, and he signed for less than he probably could have Brandon Aiyuk in the deal. And he came out and said, stop your questions. I'm good. I'm paid. I've got money. I'm going to play football. So every player has a choice. Every human being has a choice to do what they want, act how they want in these negotiations. And unfortunately for Brandon Aiyuk right now, and maybe more so for the Niners, he's choosing to not take the deal that he might have taken 6 months ago. And here we are, July 18th, still talking about Brandon Aiyuk and what he might do.
Devontae Smith signed for 3 years and $75 million.
Oh, he left a lot on the table.
I mean, there was something, and I don't know if was it Acho? It might have been Emmanuel Acho with something on FS1. Somebody yesterday was rolling through the other receivers, and they're like, "Why Brandon's gonna get between 28 and 30? Devontae Smith got 28." I'm like, "No, he didn't. He had 25.
25.
Now his guarantee is very high.
Right.
His guarantee is 51. That's very, very high. So that's why Devontae, because as David Lombardi talked to us, and many have, the guarantee for most players, is more important than that AAV. This whole like Tyreek Hill, $30 million a year. Not really even close. The Dolphins can get out of that thing before it's over, and Tyreek won't have made anywhere near $30 million a year. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But every now and again, there's somebody who kind of maybe ruins it for everybody else by having their head fully screwed on straight. I get it. There's so many factors weighing on these guys. First of all, to even be a football player, you've got to be a maniac. You've got to be a complete maniacal weirdo to put your body in those situations. I'll never not be impressed. I'll never not. And that's why I am usually so pro player. Non-guaranteed contracts for players who go out there and do that with their body. Yes, get every single dollar that you can. But every once in a while, somebody walks out in front of a microphone and goes, look, at a certain point, a lot of money is just a lot of money. Like, there's nothing that Brandon, here, I'll say it this way. There's nothing that Amon-Ra St. Brown can do that Devontae Smith can't with money. They're both eating.
Right.
They're fine forever. They are fine forever as long as they watch what they're doing. It ends up not being about money. Everyone go, oh, it's always about money. It's not about money. It's about ego and respect.
Respect, exactly.
That's all it's about.
It's funny you say that because I was driving home and my wife, the lovely Supper, called. She calls dinner Supper, which is why she carries that name. Yep. And so Supper, we're chatting about the baby, whatnot. And she says, how was the show? And I said, oh, it's great. We're loving the morning, this and that. She says, what'd you talk about? And I said, well, Brandon Aiyuk's not happy with his contract offer. And she says, what'd the Niners offer him? I said, $26 million a year. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, he's not happy with $26 million a year.
It's not enough.
Silence on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
And she said, what does he want? I said, I think he wants closer to 30. And she's like, get milk on the way home. I can't do this. I'm hanging up.
Well, my favorite are conversations with people that have none of the context of what's going on in the bigger picture.
Right.
I'll never forget.
And I told her it's very nuanced. It's about guaranteed money and, the actual guarantee and this and that. And she's like,
You're
whatever.
like, but honey, I'm on Raga 30. She's like, what did you just say to me? Like, I mean, so
Who got what?
I've probably told you this story, but you remember the whole Laramie Tunsil thing?
Yeah.
Right on draft night with the gas mask.
And the bomb.
He was supposed to be the second pick in the draft. And then he wasn't the second pick in the draft because somebody floated a picture of him like doing weed with a face mask thing going on. And it went viral and he's flying down the draft board. And I'm sitting there doing what us sports fans do, which is just like, get a bowl of cereal. Let's watch this guy fly down the board. And everyone's freaking out. And oh my God, he's losing millions of dollars every minute that goes by. Oh, the Steelers are on the clock and the Bucks are on the clock. And oh, yeah, they don't want to just fly. And you're just into the soap opera. And then somebody walks into the room that doesn't do sports. And they're like, why are you freaking out? What's going on? I'm like, well, he was supposed to be the second pick. And now there's the fifth pick and the sixth pick and the seventh. He's not getting picked and he's losing millions of dollars. And then he goes 13th. And my friend looks at me and goes, what do you get for 13th? I said, I think he's going to get like, $14 million.
Over 4, yeah.
My friend goes, hey, he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
That was the end of that conversation.
It's a lot of gas masks he can buy.
That's a lot of anxiety that you just threw at a situation. And by the way, Laramie Tunsil, my friend was right. It's fine.
Yeah.
Pull through. Still playing, still making huge dollars. Yeah. And it worked out.
Brandon's going to be fine. If he has to play on the fifth-year option and he makes 14.1, he's going to be able to pull through. Even though he may be leaving $12 million on the table this year, if the 26 is something that is still there. And I'm not sure where we are with this offer that the Niners reportedly made. Is it still there?
I don't know about that. I heard Steiny yesterday being like, that offer's been pulled. And I'm like, are you making up a script that doesn't exist? I don't know. Why would I do think we do this sometimes in these situations. It kind of gets our little own soap opera going, our anxiety, our anger in life or whatever. And we're like, the Niners and Brandon, they hate each other and they're not talking to each other. And the Niners like, you won't take 26. Fine. We're not even going to offer you one. We hate you. I'm like, I don't think that's not my perception.
That's not the way that the Niners are doing things. I mean, the Niners as an organization, I don't think that they roll that way.
I don't either.
I don't know how much conversation there is right now, back and forth. It seems pretty quiet with 5 days ago until he has to report. But I do wonder about how this is going to get resolved because Brandon has done a lot of things, especially late here in the process. In July, when you ask to be traded, you don't demand it, you request to be traded. And I'm sure the team kind of patted him on the proverbial head and said, well, we're not doing that. And so we're going to move on and we'll see you on Tuesday.
All right. We're sponsored by Lucky California. Laramie Tunsil, career earnings, $163 million.
$1 million. Okay. Major.
All right.